It started not with a fight, but with a message. A soft-spoken, strangely timed apology video from Jasmine Pineda that landed like a grenade. The woman who once threatened to rip Gino's balls off on camera was suddenly whispering, "Sorry?" No drama, no tears, just confusion. And in under 48 hours, that so-called apology had spiraled into one of the loudest fan-led meltdowns in recent 90-day Fiance memory. Jasmine didn't name Gino. She didn't mention the show. She barely mentioned anything. Just her eyes darting, monotone delivery, weird background, and a cryptic sign-off about respect. Respect for whom? Fans called it robotic, rehearsed, corporate. But it didn't feel like PR. It felt more like fear. Bold move? Or total surrender? Because this wasn't closure. It was a smoke signal. And then Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, they lit up like wildfire. Did Jasmine get kicked off TLC? Was that court mandated? Did Gino report her? Nobody had answers, but the implications were too juicy to ignore. This wasn't just influencer drama. Something behind the scenes had snapped. Within 24 hours, Jasmine wiped key posts from Instagram. Fans noticed she'd removed any trace of the show, even the iconic photo in her yellow workout pants. Gone. You don't delete brand identity like that unless there's a burn notice coming. There were murmurs, then screenshots. Alleged DMs from insiders hinting Jasmine had broken a clause in her NDA or misstepped on live. That maybe, just maybe, TLC gave her the quiet boot. But then came the bigger whisper. Was she being deported? This smelled like something way deeper than a breakup. Behind it all was one undeniable detail. Jasmine had entered the US on a K-1 visa, which meant she only had 90 days to marry her fiancé. Or leave. So if Gino had backed out, didn't file, or simply quietly stopped the process, her time was up. And if that happened, she'd have to go back. Legally, no ceremony. No green card. No TV storyline. And that's when the silence from Gino became deafening. No posts, no likes, no thank you for your apology, not even a sarcastic story post wearing his pineapple shirt. Nothing. This man who wore a hat indoors for years to avoid, showing a bald spot, suddenly had zero ego to protect on the internet. Either Gino was sitting this out on purpose, or he had no choice, which brought fans to theory number 3, was Jasmine gagged by the court, or by TLC itself? She's no stranger to drama. Jasmine thrived on camera tantrums, emotional warfare, public meltdowns. But this version of her? Edited, measured, almost lawyer-approved. Her usual shouting replaced by stilted platitudes. An entire storm reduced to gray clouds. That's when fans realized Jasmine didn't sound sorry. She sounded scared, and let's talk about her actual words. She spoke of making peace with the past and wishing people well without ever saying who she was talking about. Not once did she say Gino or my fiancé, not even a passive they. That's expertly avoiding liability. So was this video a moral statement or a legal one? Fans started connecting the dots between fragments. Her sister's sudden cryptic tweets, her kids allegedly being back in Panama, Gino's family suddenly stepping into Reddit threads to clarify timelines. Even worse, hardcore fans pulled receipts showing Jasmine possibly wasn't even in the country anymore. Based on location tags, her apology may not have been filmed in Michigan, or even the US. So now the question wasn't when she left, it was if she was forced out. See, there's this lesser-known part of K-1 visas. If the timeline lapses and the relationship isn't legitimized by marriage, not only does the visa expire, but the person can face a ban. Especially if there's evidence of faking intent or public behavior that contradicts USCIS standards. And 90 Days' job is to film the mess. But if the mess becomes legally toxic, TLC washes their hands clean. Fast. Internally, rumor is Jasmine got warned by producers months ago that her erratic behavior, off-screen social rants, and alleged confrontations with crew members were stacking up. Combine that with a filming suspension after those backstage screaming clips circulated, and sources believe the network wanted her gone. But here's the twist. You can't just fire someone holding a live visa. You have to legally brief them. And if the agreement says no public disclosure or defamation, you bet they'll muzzle any exit statement tighter than a pillowcase on a motel bed. If there's one thing reality TV fears, it's losing control of its edit. Fans kept waiting for clarity. A live, a post, a denial, anything to make sense of why one of the most magnetic trash fire reality stars of the year was suddenly whispering goodbyes on speakerphone from a vague bedroom in what looked like Panama City. But we got nothing, except more silence. That's when Reddit sleuths found what could be the smoking gun. Allegedly, someone close to production leaked that Jasmine violated filming expectations by airing personal grievances live while under TLC contract. Something about her implying Gino threatened her documents without TLC's cut or consent. If true, that alone might cause breach-level chaos behind the scenes. From a network POV, that's fireable. From a visa POV, potentially worse. And worse yet, Jasmine's apology may have been coached, not for the fans, but for immigration eyes. If someone hinted Jasmine defamed or fabricated abuse claims for sympathy or clout, that's grounds for re-examination of intent. Remember, the K-1 visa is not a reality TV perk. It's an immigration tool monitored by feds, so now the walls were closing in. She looked smaller, weaker, not because she was broken, but because the narrative had slipped from her hands. No longer the sizzling, fiery, high-glam villainess smashing toothbrushes with calculated rage. This was Jasmine, low-lit, neutral-toned, barely audible, talking like she'd just gotten off a call no one wants to take. The apology we got didn't say, "I'm sorry." It said, "Please, don't push further." And what about Gino? His silence isn't making him look innocent. It's making him look strategic. Man went from punching bag persona to legal ghost. No glitches, no leaks, no accidental likes. Clean hands, which feels almost too clean. And let's be real. This man has always played slow burn. Publicly shamed by Jasmine for years, from gift fights to sexless arguments to dental threats, and he still filed the K-1 in the background. So if he's not talking now, it's not because he's scared. It might be because he no longer needs to say a word. So who actually won here? Jasmine, or the public machine that got rich watching her breakdown in real time? One thing's clear. Whatever deal got made, whatever call went down, it was made far from Twitter, far from Instagram, far from Reddit. And Jasmine's public apology? That was never meant for us. It was a rope tossed into quicksand. Whether it pulls her out or sinks her deeper depends on what comes next. Because the moment her video hit timelines, another digital war was already brewing. And it wasn't waiting for her to return. Say what you want about Jasmine and Gino, but that toothbrush scene? That wasn't just a meltdown. It was a masterclass in emotional chaos disguised as couple conflict. A simple bathroom argument over a hygiene product somehow detonated into screaming threats, smashed property, and one of the most disturbing relationship dynamics we've ever seen broadcast on reality TV. Jasmine didn't explode because of a toothbrush. That was the match. But the fuel, betrayal, deprivation, and control. The red flags weren't simmering. They were flashing with sirens, and nobody walked away. When Jasmine found Gino's ex's toiletries still in his Michigan apartment, her mind didn't go to, maybe he forgot. It went straight to evidence. She didn't want answers, she wanted ammunition. Slamming drawers, pointing to feminine products, she acted like Sherlock Holmes on a vendetta, not a fiance visiting her future home. But why? Because Jasmine never trusted the environment Gino built. And Gino never bothered to make it feel like hers, even though he filed the K-1 visa, even though he brought her over, even though they were allegedly building a new life. The walls, the drawers, and yes, even a used toothbrush felt like a message. You'll always be second to someone who's already gone. And Jasmine reacted the way someone reacts when they've been waiting to explode. Not just at Gino, but at every lie she swore she forgave. She didn't break the toothbrush. She broke the fantasy that she'd ever feel safe in his space. Now Gino, let's talk about him. The smug little grin when she's ranting, the muttered uh-huh, followed by a blank stare at the floor. The man weaponizes passivity in a way that's almost impressive. He doesn't yell. He doesn't storm out. He shrinks. Shrinks so far into silent martyr mode that resentment becomes a loop. What Jasmine says in volume, Gino says in withdrawal. And she knows it. It's why she screams louder every time. It's less about being heard and more about forcing any response out of a wall. Surveillance, threats, tears, withholding affection. Jasmine plays aggressive. Gino counters with indifference, delay, subtle humiliation. That's not balance. That's a relationship held together by competing traumas. When power rotates like this, nobody's steering the car. They're both just cutting each other's brakes. The signs were there. Long before the toothbrush war, Jasmine logging into Gino's email, passwords, location sharing 24/7. Proof of photos sent to other women. But here's the real kicker. Gino didn't seem shocked when caught. He barely fought back. That's not innocence. That's conditioning. This wasn't even their first blow-up about online chats, old flames, or inappropriate exchanges. And if Jasmine went into that apartment already preloaded with browsed history and screenshots, that was surveillance, not suspicion. She wasn't looking for truth. She was building a case. And the part that makes it shocking isn't what she did. It's how calm she was right after. The flip from full body rage to baby, I love you is emotional whiplash and a classic toxic loop. Attack, collapse, seduce, reward. It's like watching two people punish each other for needing love. Jasmine often says she's passionate. She's Latina, she's high drama, she can't help it. But passion without boundaries turns violent fast, and not always physically. Controlling behavior, guilt trips, screaming jealousy, those aren't relationship styles. They're symptoms. Sometimes of abandonment wounds, sometimes of fear, sometimes of entitlement, and Gino, he lets it happen. Not because he's scared, but because he's collecting martyr points. He doesn't defend himself in the moment. He retreats. Then brings it up days later in front of cameras where power shifts again, because now he looks calm, rational, and wounded. And she looks unhinged. It's calculated helplessness. Don't get mad. Get out of frame and act like you've been villainized. But when you martyr yourself long enough, you stop looking victimized and start just looking complicit. If you watched carefully across the season, there was a pattern. Jasmine demanded, Gino delayed. She escalated, he stonewalled. Then they reconciled in a soft porno tone that made it look like healing. But it was never resolution. They weren't compatible. They were addicted, and somewhere between ring upgrades, green card whispers, and camera resets, they blurred the line between love and leverage. Every I need you became you owe me. Every I forgive you became don't forget what you did. Was Jasmine emotionally abusive? At times, yes. Is Gino innocent? Absolutely not. The problem is, abuse isn't always screaming and throwing things. Sometimes it's undermining, neglect, pretending you didn't hear what you heard, didn't know what you knew, until silence becomes its own form of punishment. Jasmine also threatened to leave him repeatedly, storming out, packing bags, filming exit confessionals, comparing him to her exes. She set the terms, do better, or I walk. And somehow, every time, she stayed. And soon, leaving wasn't about escape. It was about controlling who got hurt first. Marriage became her weapon. Engagement became his shield. She used it as proof that he wasn't serious. He used it as proof that she was manipulating him. And they both acted like love was something to be negotiated after they'd emotionally bankrupted the other person. We saw it on screen. Jasmine screaming that she moved countries for Gino's lukewarm affection. Gino backing away like he'd been tricked into importing a problem. They weren't in love. They were in opposition. Wrapped in the costume of engagement, but fighting like enemies in a custody battle for emotional validation. And what about the sex dynamic? Remember how Jasmine would withhold intimacy or accuse him of neglecting her based on emotional performance? She wanted affection as proof of loyalty. He, on the other hand, used physical touch as damage control. Apology hugs, guilt-driven proposals. It was all transactional intimacy. And in that, both of them used each other. This wasn't a relationship. It was emotional warfare filmed in real time. So yes, the apartment fight looked like a typical 90DF trash fire. But zoom out and you'll realize it was the moment both of them stopped pretending this was healthy. Jasmine smashing things wasn't about drama. It was about exhaustion. Gino retreating wasn't shock. It was routine. This wasn't their worst fight. It was just the one that got filmed with perfect lighting. And still, nobody stepped away. Not the producers, not the friends, not TLC, because dysfunction sells. And if you pair it with eyeliner and awkward dinner scenes, it's Emmy-worthy trash TV, but the viewers saw it too. The comments weren't always dragging Jasmine for being crazy. Many questioned why she had to yell just to get basic truths, why she suspected everything, because she always had a reason too. Others defended Gino, saying he didn't deserve the emotional punishment, the threats, the public meltdowns over his every step. Both sides made some points. And both missed something bigger. You can't win in a tug-of-war where the rope is made of shared trauma, and both players lose every round. That apartment wasn't just a location. It was a war zone decorated in beige furniture. A place where no one felt secure enough to speak calmly, but both felt cornered enough to attack. So now, with Jasmine's alleged legal issues, her public apology, and rumors of her being gone from the US, the question becomes clear, was this her finally burning the whole house down? Or Gino quietly locking the door behind her? That's the haunting part. We still don't know who actually started the fire, because when dysfunction gets edited into entertainment, the real villains are sometimes never even on camera. So here's the question that no one on the show ever asked the way they should have. When Jasmine kept demanding marriage, was she begging for love or bargaining for paperwork? Because let's stop pretending like it wasn't urgent for her. Jasmine didn't just want the ring. She needed it. Bad. Marriage wasn't the fairy tale ending. It was the security system. Without it, she stood to lose everything. The visa, the storyline, the social media bump, and the illusion of a stable future. And Gino? He held that gate shut like someone guarding a prize they weren't sure they wanted to give away. If love was the goal, why did everything feel like a negotiation? Look back at their timeline. As soon as Jasmine landed in Michigan, she hit the gas on wedding prep. We're talking instant venue lists, fertility vitamins, arguments over whether his budget included hair extensions or not. And while she was talking dresses and last names, Gino was dragging his feet like he was being asked to sign over a kidney. Not just say, I do. Fans thought it was cold feet, but it felt colder than that. It felt condescending. Gino had all the legal power in that moment, and he knew it. He didn't have to yell to hold control, he just had to delay. Almost every time Jasmine brought up the ceremony, he would, yes, but his way around it. Yes, we will, but not yet. Yes, I love you, but let's focus on something else. And Jasmine, already on edge from the stress of her move, felt her urgency turn into panic. From her side, the clock wasn't ticking. It was screaming. K1 gives you 90 days. That's not just a reality TV title. That's federal immigration regulation. If you don't marry in that window, you're technically out of status, meaning you go home. And not just for a vacation, for good. She couldn't afford to be chill. Not when the consequences of waiting were deportation on a technicality, but love that's rushed turns into leverage. And leverage always has a price. Here's what people forget. Gino planned this, every single step. From filing the petition, responding to the embassy interviews, paying her flights, promising her a life change. He engineered this journey. And the moment she arrived, he acted like she showed up uninvited. 1 minute, he's offering security. The next minute, hesitation, panic. Then sarcasm dripping out the sides of his mouth when she dared to ask when they'd tie the knot. His classic line, "Let's not force it." How is it forcing, Gino, when you're the one who asked her to uproot her entire life to be your wife? That's where fans started turning. Not just on Jasmine's behavior, but for Jasmine's situation. She was loud, yeah. Controlling? Sure, but desperate women don't act calm. Especially not when every delay smells like emotional sabotage. And emotional sabotage is exactly what it started looking like the longer Gino refused to name a wedding date. If you give someone a plane ticket for love, and then make them prove they deserve to stay, that's not romance. That's coercion. It's not just about signing one paper. Jasmine had children back home, a career she paused, friends she left. Her entire sense of identity was rebooted for this man who couldn't even confirm if she'd be allowed to call herself his wife in 12 weeks. And when love becomes a guessing game with the stakes that high, people don't act rational. They act scared. Scared people try to control everything around them to feel safe. Jasmine's outbursts, the jealousy, the arguments about exes, the obsession with timelines, none of that started until she realized Gino wasn't moving at the pace he promised. So here's where the manipulation flipped. In Panama, Jasmine seemed like the aggressor. Loud, demanding, unrelenting control freak energy. Classic reality TV fuel, right? But in Michigan, the roles shifted quietly. Gino became the one with the emotional power, no longer outnumbered by her friends, no longer in her country. He was home. Quiet, in control, surrounded by his familiar stuff, old toothbrushes included. And instead of pushing back with words, he started withholding, smiles, affirmation, progress. For Jasmine, that was psychological starvation. You could see it physically drain her energy. Her voice got softer. Her rage turned repressively internal. The wild emotional swings didn't stop, but they got sharper, more strategic, more desperate. Control didn't stop. It just changed costumes. That's what made it dangerous. Some fans called it emotional blackmail. Jasmine throwing hissy fits to force Gino into submission. But they missed the slow chokehold of passivity coming from his side like a fog. She screamed because she was collapsing. He smiled because he'd already emotionally checked out. Feeling like someone's keeping your life on pause until your behavior improves? That's not mutual respect. That's quiet domination. And that's exactly why TLC was loving every second. So, were they documenting this slow destruction of love in real time? Or did they manufacture scenes to keep it spiraling? It's hard to say, because reality TV doesn't create drama. It just casts the kind of people who won't hide it. Producer manipulation usually happens in silence, filming schedules designed to push fatigue, camera angles that spotlight certain reactions, off-camera questions fed to heighten chaos. When you put two emotionally unstable people together without sleep, privacy, or support, you get meltdowns. Audience gold. And the producers knew. The more confused Jasmine looked, the more views they'd get. Remember one of their final arguments? When Jasmine begged for intimacy and Gino dismissed her? She wasn't throwing a tantrum. She was begging to feel loved in a space that felt colder by the minute. That's why viewers couldn't quite decide who to root for. Was Jasmine emotionally manipulative? Probably. Was Gino leading her on until he could ghost her legally safe? Also, very possible. And that's where the real punch lands. Maybe neither of them were being honest. Not with each other, not with themselves. And definitely not with the cameras. By the final few episodes, their chemistry looked flat, almost procedural, like two people waiting for a clock to hit zero so they could escape clean. The passion was dry, the distant smiles, the vague TikTok-ready captions. If Jasmine wanted marriage to guarantee love, and Gino wanted love without responsibility, what happens when both realize they played each other? Because in the end, someone's always more invested, and someone's always more stuck. The emotional tug-of-war disguised as engagement turned into legal gymnastics. Public meltdowns became evidence. Quiet silences became ammunition. So when Jasmine finally broke, it wasn't because she was evil. It's because she felt outmaneuvered. When Gino finally disengaged, it wasn't because he was innocent. It's because he felt trapped. And now, after all those negotiations, all those ultimatums, there is no wedding, no partnership, just two people even further from the altar than when they first met. So answer this. Was either of them ever really in it for real? Or were they both bargaining for something they hoped the other person could become? Gino's family never needed to say much. Their disgust always came through, in the raised eyebrows at dinners, the stiff hugs, the quiet side-eyes during Jasmine's emotional outbursts. They didn't shout. They judged. From the first awkward meal back in Michigan, you could practically feel the resentment radiating off the table. Jasmine, bright red lipstick, high energy, thick accent, and zero filter. Gino's family didn't see her as exotic. They saw her as extra, loud, dramatic, embarrassing, and Jasmine, she felt it. Every subtle micro-rejection, every polite smile that didn't reach their eyes. Every time Gino's uncle or cousin couldn't make it to a dinner last minute, she wasn't paranoid. She was being tolerated. And nobody was bothering to hide it. This wasn't just a broken relationship. It was a battle for territory across 3 countries. See, Jasmine wasn't walking into a warm embrace. She was entering an emotional courtroom, and the jury was already rolling their eyes. From their perspective, she was the fiery outsider milking Gino for green card fame. And from hers, they were cold, condescending, and way too comfortable talking around her. And Gino? He never defended her, maybe out of fear, maybe out of fatigue. But every time his relatives made thin comments like, wow, she's got quite the personality, or is she always like this? He laughed it off. Or worse, he agreed. And that's when Jasmine stopped trying. She turned that biting charm into a cold war. She called his family rude, called out their judgment during confessionals, said they looked down on her. And maybe they did. But here's the twist. By going public with her feelings, she didn't isolate them. She isolated herself. Because the second you wage war on the family in front of cameras, they stop being tight-lipped and start recruiting allies. They didn't clap back on social, but they started whispering offline. And Jasmine knew it. That's when the cousin allegations dropped. In a moment of raw rage, Jasmine threw out a bomb, alleging that maybe something shady had happened between Gino and a certain female cousin. She never gave full confirmation, always danced around it. But the implication was clear. Cue the internet avalanche. Within hours, Reddit threads lit up tearing into Gino. Viewers debated whether the relationship with the cousin had even an ounce of truth, or if Jasmine was weaponizing discomfort to deflect attention off herself. And just like that, the attention shifted from the couple's dysfunction to family darkness. But Gino? He didn't deny it straight out. He squirmed, deflected, acted like he didn't want to feed into it, and that gave the rumor wings. Even if it was baseless, his silence looked shady. Still, no evidence ever dropped. Not a photo, not a message, not a timeline. Jasmine gave nothing but insinuation, and it felt like both a calculated swing and a last resort move. When backed into a corner, Jasmine didn't back down. She burned the room with her on the way out. After that, conversations got colder, shorter, more filtered. Gino seemed embarrassed. Jasmine seemed angrier. And the family, they seemed done. Here's the emotional core of it, though. Jasmine didn't want to be liked by them. She needed to be accepted, validated, trusted. And Gino's silence during their stares and snide remarks wasn't neutral. It was betrayal. He chose peace over protection. And she never forgave that. Every time Jasmine acted out, part of it was performance. Yes. But part of it was desperation. Screaming was the only way she ever got heard in a room full of people already writing her off. And when someone's screaming in every room, maybe they're not the problem. Maybe the environment is, but the real damage, it wasn't in what was said. It was in what wasn't. Every time Gino failed to correct his cousin's tone, every time he let a dinner roll into awkward silence after his aunt asked Jasmine if she was used to the cold yet, every passive act of quiet permission sent Jasmine into another spiral. Is it worse to be yelled at or quietly disrespected in every room you walk into? Soon after, Jasmine stopped showing up to family invites altogether. If the energy wasn't welcoming, she didn't want to perform for acceptance. But TLC still needed drama, and they leaned in. Took those absences, made storylines. What should have been a slow healing of merging two families became an arms race. Public posts from Gino's relatives saying, "We support our boy." Clips of Jasmine crying about being alone in America. And Gino ducking responsibility like it was a game of emotional dodgeball. The impact wasn't just screen deep either. Fans picked sides hard. Half of them saw Jasmine as unpredictable, toxic, ungrateful. The other half saw a woman who traded her home, her routine, her sense of safety, for a man who couldn't even stand up for her to his own aunt. And what about Gino? He kept calling Jasmine emotional, that favorite word of partners who want to seem calm but won't admit they're complicit. Almost like gaslighting with a straight face. Did Jasmine scream too often? Absolutely. But did Gino stay silent until he could play saint? Just as often, when someone's screaming for help and the other person pretends not to hear, That's not conflict. That's abandonment. The more ignored Jasmine felt, the louder she got. The louder she got, the more Gino's family saw their assumptions validated. The more they pulled back, judged, whispered, and side-eyed with judgment, the more isolated Jasmine became inside Gino's world. Until one day, she no longer belonged in it. Even fans who didn't like Jasmine had to admit it. Gino's relatives didn't want harmony. They wanted compliance. Quiet, domesticated, agreeable. And Jasmine, she was none of those things. She was loud, reactionary, raw. Yes, but she was also someone who refused to play small to be liked. And if she wasn't emotionally perfect, Gino's family weaponized that imperfection against her. In real life, this kind of energy doesn't end with a final fight. It ends with emotional withdrawal on all sides. And that's ultimately what happened here. Jasmine's pain turned into self-sabotage. Gino's avoidance turned into silent revenge. And the family, they got exactly what they wanted. A reason to say I told you so. A broken engagement. A culturally clashed relationship. A woman they never accepted now back on a different continent. But when the story ends like that, it's not just about who moved out. It's about who stopped showing up emotionally first. So, here's the cliffhanger. When did that family break the couple? Or had the couple already broken each other and the family just exposed the cracks faster? Was Jasmine loud because she was unstable? Or because nobody ever listened until she screamed? And when Gino stood in silence while his relatives laid out judgment, was that loyalty to them? Or cowardice about admitting the truth? Because sometimes the biggest betrayals don't scream. They sit at a quiet dinner table, fold their hands, and smile politely while you drown. It wasn't long after. Jasmine's soft-spoken apology video went viral that fans noticed something weird. Her tone didn't match her online presence at all, because while she looked fragile and muted in that strange clip, her Instagram was still serving full glam shots, old flirty reels with Gino, and captions like, "Love me or leave me, I won't chase," like, huh? Caption energy? Savage. Video energy? Subdued. Real life energy? Totally unreadable. And between those layers sat the ultimate puzzle. What the hell actually happened behind the cameras? Because one thing was clear right off the bat. The show might have ended, but the psychological game was still playing out across social media. And Jasmine wasn't the only one holding pieces. What if Jasmine's real enemy wasn't Gino, but her own need to win publicly? We saw Jasmine air out her emotional meltdowns on screen like it was detox. Crying, pacing, blaming, begging, loving, then hating, all in a single episode. But people didn't realize that off-camera, the game was different. More strategic, Jasmine wasn't just filming a relationship. She was branding one. Her grid showed someone trying to curate control. The lingerie pics, the eyes-to-camera gazes, the occasional vague quotes about healing and knowing your worth. They weren't for Gino, they were weapons. She was performing peace, while bleeding out from the chaos off-screen, but here's what caught fans off guard. Gino never played along, he barely posted, barely clapped back, no rebuttals, no cheating accusations addressed, no IG lives, no TikToks defending his silence. His strategy? Ghost harder than Casper. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. And in a way, it worked. Because while Jasmine gave the world access to the fire, to every scorched piece of her pride, Gino sat back and built sympathy through absence. He didn't win by being right. He won by refusing to play. Which makes you think, was Jasmine ever really in control? The optics always made her look dominant. The screamer, the firecracker, the crazy Latina label that frankly, fans weaponized way too fast. But look closer. Jasmine was reactive. Gino, quietly, was proactive. He didn't lose his cool because he never showed emotion to begin with. The man blinked once every 3 minutes and nodded like an intern in an HR meeting. That calm might look like kindness, but it can also be a manipulation tactic. And before you think I'm reaching, think about this. Who kept feeding the cameras embarrassing clips of Jasmine crying in public, swearing at coat racks, or blowing up at emotional flashpoints? Who kept repeating how unstable she was, but kept bringing her back because he loved her? And more importantly, who kept the cameras rolling every single time she broke? Because what if Gino didn't just tolerate being filmed? What if he used it to frame the narrative? It's a wild thought, but it lines up. On multiple occasions, Gino would rehash Jasmine's previous outbursts not in private, but in confessionals. The time she accused him of disrespecting her in bed, he waited until the interview chair to say it made him feel emasculated. Not her. Not a therapist. TLC, and boom, cut to Jasmine, next scene, yelling, "That cycle?" Played like a script. Jasmine fueled the flame, but TLC picked the direction. And Gino sat back and let it burn. And when the season ended and the post-show chaos began, guess who got quiet first? Not Jasmine, not fans. It was production, no formal cast wrap, no press circuit push from TLC. Just a suddenly silent feed where clips used to drop nightly. Jasmine's storyline cut off like someone yanked power mid-episode. No explanation, and that's why fans started putting the puzzle together. Jasmine's missteps, flirting publicly with other men on socials, mask-off breakdowns, oversharing in lives, calling out Gino's family and the producers at one point, all pointed to one thing: she might have been the star of the show until she became too hard to edit. That's when fans began asking, did TLC yank the plug? And it made sense. Shows like this run on chaos, but not when chaos breaks format. When cast members go off script, or worse, start dropping real tea about production manipulation, networks don't scold, they silence. Which brings us back to Jasmine's sudden silence. No tweets, no Instagram rants, no interviews. The woman who once posted 3 times a day and called Reddit keyboard warriors with no sex life disappeared. So was this a social detox, a rebrand attempt, or a court-ordered gag via contract breach? The answer may lie in the timing, because her last visible post coincided exactly with whispers about a potential immigration complication. Talk about the K-1 visa possibly stalling. Talk about her needing legal distance from public drama while things played out quietly. And if you think that's dramatic, it's not. It's literally page 1 in the 90-day playbook. When things get legally dicey, go silent and wait for clearance. But silence didn't help her image. Not this time. Some fans backed off with sympathy. But others, they filled in the blanks themselves. Accused her of being manipulative, a clout chaser, saying she used Gino, used the show, used the system. The battleground wasn't Jasmine versus Gino anymore. It was fan perception versus fan projection. Everyone invented their own ending. Nothing scares a reality star more than the world moving on without getting their side, and no new footage meant no new damage control. Jasmine was stuck with the last image the public remembered, breaking down, unraveling, begging Gino to love her. While he sat expressionless in an armchair, he probably got on Craigslist. What's worse, TLC could have helped wrap her arc. They chose not to. That's rarely an accident. That's usually a quiet decision to bury a liability. So what does that tell us? That reality TV doesn't create villains. It formats conflict. It polishes chaos, streamlines dysfunction into digestible drama frames. And when cast members stop being chaotic in a way that edits well, they get cut, and fast. Jasmine, for all her explosive behavior, wasn't just a bad partner. She was a wild card they couldn't taper, a fire they couldn't contain. And Gino, his silence, public and private, fit every mold they understood. He became the wronged man. The exasperated fiancé? The safe one to keep. So who really shaped the villain narrative? Jasmine? Or the machine built to sell her as one? You decide. But here's what we know as fact. Jasmine disappeared after posting ambiguous, pseudo-apologetic content. Gino maintained online neutrality and stayed contract safe. TLC walked away from the mess without holding either accountable. And now fans are left wondering if the final chapter happened off camera. If Jasmine's downfall wasn't love lost, but narrative hijacked. If this whole thing ended not because of rage, but because she stopped obeying the script. So here's your cliffhanger. Was Jasmine muted because she crossed a legal line? Or because she stopped making the network money? And if the game evolved from engagement to exile, how long before other cast members catch on? Because in this game, it's not the loudest one who gets cut, it's the one who stops playing the role the network picked for them. Jasmine's story didn't end with a breakup. It might have ended with a clock. Because while fans were glued to messy fights, proposal threats, and rice cooker rants, something much quieter and way more permanent was ticking down underneath it all. Jasmine wasn't just on 90-Day Fiancé for love. She was here on a K-1 visa, non-immigrant, 90 days to marry, or legally pack and leave. Not reality TV flexible, hard, government enforced. And when those 90 days start, they don't stop for pauses, edits, or drama arcs. They expire. That means if she and Gino didn't get legally married in that time frame, she wasn't just an ex-fiancé, she became out of status. Leaving the country is one thing, but did she just lose every platform she had? Fans started quietly tracking it. Filming wrapped, no wedding photos surfaced. No marriage certificates leaked, which is rare for a couple still in public interest. Jasmine vanished from episodes. Timeline, silent. Not even a staged final scene. And then, social media started acting funny. One day, Jasmine was posting throwback bikini pics. The next, nothing. Zero activity. No voice notes. No brand collabs. No Amazon links. Her cameo went dark. Stories deleted. And just like that, rumors started. Did she get deported? Did the visa lapse? Or did Gino himself yank it before they tied the knot? Here's the legally possible path. If Gino decided not to marry Jasmine and didn't file for an adjustment of status, she was legally required to leave the US after the 90-day period. If she didn't, that's called violative overstay. And it comes with major consequences. Anything from bans on re-entry to requests for removal proceedings. The bureaucratic term for deportation. And when that kind of paperwork hits, there's no confessional chair to cry in. So was Jasmine removed quietly? Did she return to Panama voluntarily? Or did a TLC producer have to politely suggest she pack up and go? None of that's been confirmed officially. But timing matters, and the clues aren't small. At least 2 independent fan pages surfaced sightings of Jasmine back in Panama weeks after she was expected to film follow-ups in the US. She didn't appear in the Where Are They Now segments. She didn't show up at Friendsgiving cast collabs. And Reddit blew up when a known translator on the show cryptically said, "You'll notice who's gone, and it's not by accident." So now we're in the territory of hard speculation, but also logical immigration reality. The K-1 visa doesn't give you space to break down emotionally for 9 months and reset. It's designed for couples with actual intent, legal ones, to marry and settle. You can't be halfway in or working things out for a TV arc. You're either married at day 90 or you're legally out of alignment. And TLC? It's not their job to keep you in status. They are not an immigration agency. Once the story's shot, the edit is done, and the drama's banked. They're done. Which begs the question, did Jasmine think the show gave her more protection than it really did? Because remember, she was fighting for more than affection. She came to America banking on 2 things: marriage and visibility. Marriage would keep her in the country. Visibility would keep her on the map. Lose one, maybe you bounce back, lose both, you vanish. And that's exactly what started happening. Creators reporting she ghosted interviews. Brands saying she went silent after deals were discussed. Collab opportunities getting no response, not even a note from her rep, which raises serious questions. Was she advised legally to go quiet? Or was silence part of her punishment? Because once that 90-day period closed, absolutely everything changed. And Gino didn't say a word about any of it. The one man who could have cleared the air. One Instagram story, one throwaway comment on Reddit, one teaser interview, anything. But he stayed mute. Which makes you ask, was he under gag order too? Had they cut communication entirely? Or was he watching the public slowly move on and choosing to let Jasmine carry the fall? Some fans said he was being respectful. Others say it looked like revenge without fingerprints. And the show? Completely silent. TLC didn't post her usual "what happened next" clip. No official update on her exit. They didn't even market her downslide, which is rare. This is a network that sold Danielle's binder. That milked Big Ed's humiliation for 4 spin-offs. That turned Colt's mom into meme gold. And yet, Jasmine quietly disappeared. The one woman who drove half the season's watch time just vanished from every platform at the same time. That doesn't sound like a coincidence. It sounds like closed-door consequences. And still, fans divided hard. Some argue Jasmine played with the system, led Gino on, got caught in her own ambition, and overwhelmed the process. That she gambled green cards for show fame and lost. Others say she was manipulated, filmed in moments of emotional unraveling for profit, and tossed aside once she became hard to manage. Truth might sit somewhere ugly in the middle. There's a reality where she was both scared and strategic, both in love and in survival mode, both volatile and vulnerable. A walking contradiction on camera, like most people going through major life changes, but pimped out by a network that didn't care what was real, only what was reactive. And when she stopped reacting on cue, she stopped being useful. So what does this all mean now? Well, if she was sent home officially, Jasmine may face a 3 to 10-year ban from re-entry depending on whether she overstayed and how long. That also makes future visas tougher to process, even for visitation. If she left voluntarily before the visa fully expired, but didn't adjust her status, she might be able to return. But her record's not clean. It will follow her, and future interviews will ask about TLC, marriage intentions, and public exposure, especially if she made immigration look like entertainment. On top of that, if she received even partial compensation from TLC while not in proper status, it could complicate tax and visa paperwork further. Welcome to the legal mess producers never put in the trailer. And then there's the worst case scenario. If Jasmine wasn't fully informed of the visa expiration window, or if Gino slow-walked paperwork as a silent weapon, she may have been legally trapped without knowing it. Outdated property laws, country moves, emotional dependence, all in the name of love. Suddenly this isn't a breakup story anymore. It's a cautionary tale with receipts. Perfect example of how love, control, and power can drape themselves in romance. And then quietly flip the cage door closed. Because if Jasmine's story ended not with heartbreak, but with silence, whose fingerprints are actually on the lock? So now we're left with the question that haunts every quiet cast member exit. Will Jasmine return? Or did we already watch her final episode without knowing it? The answer might be hiding in flight records, or filed away in DHS folders with bright yellow tabs that say, "Expedited departure approved." One thing's for sure, what started as a TV saga ended up a legal ghost story. No matter how you felt about Jasmine Pineda, whether you rooted for her, raged at her, or flipped sides every episode, one thing is clear now. She didn't get the ending she expected. What we saw wasn't just a breakup. And it wasn't a clean-cut fall from grace either. It felt more like psychological whiplash playing out publicly, with Jasmine stuck between trying to survive the story and trying to rewrite it in real time. She entered 90 Day Fiance with fire. Big lashes, bigger energy, confrontation on tap. She wasn't here to play nice. She was here to claim space. But what started as confidence quickly twisted into control, and then into chaos. Some call it toxic. Some call it trauma. Truth is, it might be both. If this was Jasmine's last scene, was she finally free? Or finally defeated? Rewatch those last few episodes with context. You'll see a pattern. Loud anger, followed by crushing vulnerability. Jasmine flips from rage to heartbreak in seconds. It isn't strategy. It's survival mode. And the psychology behind that? It's something known as trauma reactivity. People with unresolved wounds, abandonment, betrayal, emotional neglect don't always respond with reason. They respond with panic, with power plays, with trying to control what feels uncontrollable. And Jasmine? She couldn't control Gino, couldn't control his family, couldn't control the marriage timeline. So she tried to control everything else, his phone, his space, his tone, and eventually, the entire narrative. But when you rely on control to feel safe, every delay feels like danger. Was she self-aware of how damaging the behavior was? Hard to say. At times, yes. Her self-criticism came out mid-fight. I know I'm too much. But often right after, she doubled down, declared love while accusing betrayal, screamed and then apologized with seductive smile filters on Instagram. Emotionally speaking, it's what therapists often call chaotic attachment. That deep-rooted belief that once someone sees the real you, they'll leave. So you panic, overreact, then charm, then collapse. This isn't an excuse. It's a lens. Was it right? No. Was it understandable? For many, painfully so. Jasmine didn't want to destroy Gino. She wanted to feel indispensable to him. That's a dangerous place to love from. But here's the twist. The louder Jasmine got, the calmer Gino looked. He wasn't attached at the start. Back in Panama, he flinched during her meltdowns. Looked awkward, uncomfortable, almost human. By the time they got through Michigan, Gino was a statue. So flat it stopped seeming normal. No anger, no affection, just this glassy, polite distance. Like he'd already checked out months earlier and was playing along until production wrapped. Who's worse in that equation? The woman crying every episode? Or the man whose blank face never changed between a kiss and a confrontation? Because silence isn't always harmless, it can be infuriating when used as a shield. There are viewers who argue Gino was calmly enduring a volcano, that he had to stay quiet just to survive the day-to-day chaos. Maybe. But long-term silence in the face of emotional crisis isn't management. It's withdrawal. It's a slow fade wrapped in a fake smile. That kind of stillness often leaves the other person doubting their own reality. And Jasmine doubted everything. Herself, her value, the relationship, whether she was being used. And instead of clarity, she got more quiet shrugs, vague reassurances, and a wedding deadline that never arrived. By the end, her anger wasn't about Gino cheating or lying. It was about indifference. Because nothing cuts deeper than begging someone to care and watching them blink like it's background noise. The final few clips we had of Jasmine didn't look like someone fighting for love. They looked like someone exhausted. She staged arguments with less passion, asked questions like she already knew the answers. Her public posts got vaguer, sadder, less sequined glam, more, here's me, you won't believe what I've been through. And then, silence. Not drama. Silence. Emptiness. She vanished like someone who'd run out of fight, not someone who'd finally won. So, was she reclaiming control behind the scenes, or just burning everything down so she wouldn't have to admit she lost? It depends on how we define survival. If surviving means staying emotionally intact, learning patterns, moving forward with self-awareness, then maybe Jasmine lost. Because her behavior escalated until TLC seemed to stop protecting her completely. But if survival means escaping a space where her worst patterns were amplified, then ending this chapter without a ring, a visa, or a storyline might have been the best thing that could have happened to her. Because it's one thing to be misused. It's another to keep misusing yourself for validation. Jasmine gave TLC content. But what did TLC give her? A reputation she may never shake. Stigma, screenshots, labels showing up in forms that could follow her into job applications, relationships, motherhood. And Gino? He walked away neutral. Guilty of slowness, of silence, of perhaps emotional entrapment, but his story never became unhinged. His public identity stayed clean. That unfairness is what fans argue about the most. Was Jasmine demonized for expressing pain the only way she knew how? Did she display every raw wound and get mocked, while Gino calmly repressed everything and got rewarded? Or did Jasmine refuse accountability for behavior that was genuinely awful, and try to cover it with a sob story? Maybe both versions are true, because maybe Jasmine is both survivor and villain. The media doesn't offer space for duality. You're either crazy ex or tragic fiance. But in real-life trauma recovery, people swing violently between their best and worst selves. Especially when the environment rewards pain, and TLC rewarded hers. They handed her airtime during meltdowns, pitchforks during tears, microphones during highs and lows, and she played into it. Loudly. Because somewhere deep down, Jasmine believed that the bigger her emotions, the longer she'd be remembered. She was right. And wrong. They remembered her. For chaos. And that memory became a weight she couldn't reframe. In the end, Jasmine wasn't edited into the villain. She emotionally auditioned for the role, and the cost was real. So where does that leave her arc? Not as a redemption. That didn't happen. Not total destruction either, just unfinished. Like the kind of person who tells herself, I had to do all that to survive, then quietly wonders if she created most of the madness she was trying to escape from in the first place. Gino, still unbothered, still static. Whether emotionally unavailable or expertly pragmatic, he emerged mostly scratch-free. But don't confuse calm with clean hands. Passivity can drive someone just as crazy as abuse. And Jasmine? She may never know whether her outbursts chased love away or revealed it was never safe. There to begin with. Maybe the worst kind of heartbreak isn't when someone betrays you, it's when the chaos you carry becomes bigger than the person who made you feel unsafe. So here's the real final question. Jasmine might be gone. Removed from the US, maybe blocked by Gino, possibly erased from TLC's future lineups. But emotionally, this arc ended not with disaster, but a mirror. For every viewer who saw their own dysfunction, reactivity, confusion, desperation, for love, for security, for someone who made them feel they had to scream to be seen. The cameras are off now, the visa expired, the storyline is closed. But pain like that, it doesn't need a platform to humiliate you. It just needs about 3 seconds of silence where someone used to care. So yeah. Maybe Jasmine was a villain. Maybe she survived something she'll never fully explain. Or maybe she was always both, and neither. And her final moment? Not explosive. Not romantic. Not even televised. If this was Jasmine's last scene, was she finally free? Or finally defeated? Now that the dust has settled and Jasmine's screen time is nothing but a memory stitched together by YouTube recaps and Reddit theories, the fanbase has clearly split into 2 very loud camps. One is chanting justice for Gino, insisting he was manipulated, berated, emotionally abused, and calmly endured a woman who turned every moment into a crisis. They point at his unshaken silence, his loyalty, his calmness. Ask why any man should be painted as cruel just because he wasn't reactive. The other, even louder. Jasmine got done dirty. They say she was unprotected, edited to look unstable, pushed into performing emotion while Gino skated by with blank stares and a passive strategy. They argue Jasmine was raw, emotional, and human, and TLC used that to their advantage. It's a war of interpretation now. Screamer versus strategist, victim versus villain. And no one's changing their mind, because when TV turns pain into product, the audience turns personal judgment into loyalty. And that's where things get dangerous. And TLC? Quiet. Too quiet. Not a whisper since Jasmine's disappearance. No update, no public statement, not even a here's what she's doing now moment. Which leads a lot of fans, and more than a few insiders, to believe something bigger is shifting in the franchise. Is TLC taking a darker turn, or gearing up for a reboot? All signs point to pivot. The stories have gone from love stories gone wrong to straight-up emotional malpractice. 2 years ago, it was awkward culture clashes and passive in-laws. Now, we've got explosive fights, post-show arrests, secret deportations, and borderline exploitive edits. And the issue? Fans are starting to burn out. People love drama, but not recycled cruelty. The comment sections under newer seasons say it loud. Feels more scripted, this isn't funny anymore, same formula, different victims. But at the same time, views are up, clips go viral faster. Fan accounts pop up every day. That's the paradox. The deeper TLC digs, the more viewers say they're done, but the more they watch. This isn't a franchise anymore, it's a feedback loop. The more broken the love story, the bigger the hashtag. And in that algorithmic loop, Jasmine became a benchmark. The producers know it. Jasmine gave them the formula. Humiliating fights, public meltdowns, fearless accusations, beauty mixed with danger. And when it spiraled into something they couldn't safely air anymore, they pulled out like she never happened. So what happens now? Some fans think Jasmine will pivot to OnlyFans for survival. Double down on what she knows sells, shock, skin, sadness. It wouldn't be a first. Plenty of TLC alumni built new careers there. But Jasmine, she always aimed higher. She didn't just want visibility. She wanted status, wedding, platform, stateside image. She may not come back if she can't rise from the ashes with narrative control. Others expect a YouTube rebranding. A what TLC didn't show style tell-all. She has the fan base. the screen presence, the receipts. Problem is, depending on the fine print of her contract, she might not be legally free to speak, so she stays silent. And silence, as always, makes her enemies louder. Gino, on the flip side, hasn't disappeared. He's posting carefully, chilling in the background, weirdly active on Reddit through fans, showing up in comments like "thanks for the support" without actually exposing his hands. Gino's not messy, but he's still in the ecosystem. Calm, controlled, low profile, not enough for new drama, just enough to be visible if they need him again. So now the bigger question, was Gino the peaceful survivor or the quiet manipulator? Who let Jasmine fall and walked away untouched? Depends who you ask. Fans willing to dig see patterns, his withholding, his emotional flatlining, the way he withheld progress to maintain compliance, the fact that she carried all the explosions, all the edits, while he came out sounding like a man who was simply confused. And maybe that's the key to survival on reality TV now. Don't fight the flames. Let someone else burn and look steady while the cameras roll. That's not stability. That's strategy. But here's where we leave Jasmine's story behind. For now. Not with resolution, not with full redemption, just quiet. Regret. Echoes of a person who screamed, fought, begged, maybe lied, maybe loved, but definitely broke under pressure. Whether she returns with a documentary, a docuseries, a revenge vlog, or never again, she made her mark. Wrong or right, staged or real, villain or survivor, she never left us bored, and in this world, that's sometimes the only thing TLC really pays attention to, because if this was truly Jasmine's last season, she walked out more notorious than half the people who stayed. And if you thought this was messy, wait till you hear what happened when another 90-day couple broke their NDA on camera.